Have you ever looked at someone successful and thought, they probably had an advantage I didn't have? Maybe they had wealthy parents. Maybe they knew the right people. Maybe they grew up in the perfect environment. And sometimes, that's true. Starting with money, connections, education, or a supportive environment can make the journey easier. But there's another side of the story that doesn't get talked about enough. Some people begin with almost nothing. No inheritance, no influential connections, no expensive education, no guarantee that their next opportunity will work out. Yet somehow, they slowly change their situation. They adapt, they make mistakes, they try again, and years later, their life looks completely different. So what separates these people from those who remain stuck for years? It isn't one magical personality trait, and it certainly isn't simply wanting money badly enough. A major part of the difference can come from the way people think, respond to setbacks, make decisions, and behave when nobody is watching. Because before wealth appears in someone's bank account, certain behaviors usually appear in their life first. Today, we're looking at 7 psychological patterns that can help explain why some people are able to build themselves up from a difficult starting point. And the interesting part, you don't need to be born with these traits. Many of them can be developed. Let's get into it. Number 1. They can wait for the reward. One of the biggest problems with building wealth is that the rewards are usually delayed. You can spend months learning a skill and still have very little money to show for it. You can start a business and spend months making mistakes before you find something that works. You can invest consistently and see very little difference in the beginning. You can spend years improving your career while the results seem almost invisible. And this creates a psychological battle. Your brain can see what you want right now: the new phone, the expensive clothes, the night out, the latest gadget, the lifestyle that makes you look successful. But your future is harder to see. That future business, that investment account, that skill you've been developing, that financial freedom you might have years from now. The immediate reward is visible. The future reward is only an idea. This is why patience can become such a powerful financial advantage. Imagine 2 people receive the same amount of money. Person A immediately spends most of it because they want to enjoy themselves. Person B uses part of it to improve a skill, build an emergency fund, purchase tools for a business, or invest in something productive. Neither person is necessarily smarter, but their decisions are producing different futures. And that's the important lesson. Wealth isn't only about how much money enters your life. It's also about how much of your present comfort you're willing to exchange for future options. That doesn't mean you should never enjoy your money. It means you shouldn't allow every temporary desire to steal from your long-term goals. Because sometimes becoming financially successful means learning to say, I could afford this, but I don't need it yet. That little difference can compound for years. Number 2. They don't make poor their identity. There is an important difference between experiencing financial hardship and turning the hardship into an identity. Someone can say, I don't have much money right now. That's a situation. But saying, people like me can never become wealthy, that's an identity. And identities influence behavior. If you believe you're incapable of learning difficult things, you're less likely to study them. If you believe you're terrible with money, you may stop trying to understand it. If you believe successful people are simply lucky, you may never investigate what successful people actually do. Your circumstances can influence your thinking, but your thinking can also influence what you do with those circumstances. Imagine 2 people who both lose their jobs. One thinks, this proves that nothing ever works for me. The other thinks, this is terrible, but what can I learn from this, and what can I build from here? They are facing the same problem, but they are asking completely different questions. The second person isn't pretending the situation is good. They're simply refusing to let the situation become their permanent identity. This is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make. Don't confuse where you are with who you are. Being broke is a financial condition. It doesn't have to become a permanent description of your potential. Instead of saying, I'm bad with money, try asking, what don't I understand about money yet? Instead of, I could never start a business, ask, what would I need to learn to start one? That single word, yet, can completely change how you approach a problem. Number 3. They learn to control their emotions. Building wealth involves a lot of uncomfortable emotions. Fear, jealousy, frustration, impatience, embarrassment, excitement, disappointment, and sometimes greed. The problem isn't experiencing these emotions. Everyone experiences them. The problem is allowing every emotion to make your decisions for you. Think about someone who receives unexpected money. They're excited, so they spend it immediately. Someone gets rejected from a job. They're embarrassed, so they stop applying. Someone starts a business. The first few months are difficult. They're frustrated, so they quit. Someone sees another person making money from an investment. They're afraid of missing out, so they rush into something they don't understand. In each case, the emotion is understandable, but the decision made under that emotion can be expensive. People who become more financially successful often learn to create a small gap between feeling something and acting on it. They don't eliminate emotions. They pause, they think, they ask questions, they consider consequences. Sometimes the pause lasts 5 minutes, sometimes it lasts a day, sometimes it lasts several months. And that pause can prevent one emotional decision from creating a long-term problem. A useful question to ask yourself is, if I were calm right now, would I still make this decision? If the answer is no, wait. Because financial decisions made during moments of excitement, fear, anger, or desperation can be very difficult to undo. Number 4, they become comfortable with uncertainty. Here's something nobody likes admitting: there are no guarantees. You can work hard and still fail. You can start a business and discover that your idea doesn't work. You can learn a skill and struggle to find customers. You can apply for 20 jobs and receive 20 rejections. You can make a good decision and still experience a bad outcome. That's reality. And because uncertainty is uncomfortable, many people choose the safest option available. They wait until everything is clear. They wait until they have enough money. They wait until they know exactly what will happen. They wait until they feel completely confident. And sometimes years pass while they're waiting. But successful people aren't necessarily people who have no fear. Number 5, they choose skills over appearances. This is where social media can seriously distort our understanding of wealth. You see the car, the designer clothes, the luxury apartment, the vacation, the expensive watch, the lifestyle, but you don't see the bank account. You don't see the debt. You don't see the failed businesses. You don't see the years of learning. You don't see the boring work that happened before the visible success. And this creates a dangerous temptation. People start wanting to look successful before they have built anything that produces success. But there is another approach. Instead of asking, what can I buy to look successful? Ask, what can I learn that makes me more valuable? Learn how to sell. Learn how to communicate. Learn technology. Learn marketing. Learn financial management. Learn a trade. Learn how businesses work. Learn how to solve problems. Because skills can create opportunities, and opportunities can create income. Then income can be converted into assets, and assets can eventually produce more income. That's a very different cycle from simply spending money to appear wealthy. If you're starting from zero, your first goal shouldn't necessarily be to look rich. It should be to become useful. Become the person who can solve a problem. Become the person someone is willing to pay. Become the person who can create something valuable. Because when your abilities increase, your options increase. And when your options increase, your financial possibilities increase too. Number 6, they think in terms of systems, not just motivation. Motivation feels powerful. You watch an inspiring video. You feel energized. You decide, tomorrow, everything changes. You wake up early. You make a plan. You feel unstoppable. Then a few days pass. You're tired. Something goes wrong. Life gets busy. And suddenly, the motivation disappears. This is why relying entirely on motivation can be dangerous. People who make long-term progress often build systems that continue working even when they don't feel inspired. Instead of saying, I'll save money whenever I feel disciplined, they automate savings. Instead of, I'll study whenever I'm motivated, they create a specific study schedule. Instead of, I'll work on my business when I have time, they reserve certain hours for it. Instead of, I'll stop wasting money, they create spending limits. The idea is simple. Don't make your future depend on how you feel today. Build structures that make the behavior easier. Number 7, they keep learning after they start making money. One of the most dangerous moments in financial growth is when you start believing you already know enough. You get a better job. You start earning more. Your business begins growing. You make your first serious amount of money, and suddenly you feel like you figured everything out. That's when some people stop learning. But the environment keeps changing. Technology changes. Markets change. Industries change. Consumer behavior changes. New opportunities appear. Old opportunities disappear. The person who keeps learning remains adaptable. And adaptability is incredibly valuable. Think about someone who loses their main source of income. If their entire identity depends on one skill that is no longer in demand, they're in a difficult position. But someone who has spent years learning how to learn can adapt. The point isn't to know everything, it's to remain teachable. Because your ability to earn money tomorrow depends partly on what you're willing to learn today. And this leads to one of the biggest misconceptions about getting rich from nothing. People often imagine that wealth begins with money, but for many people, it begins somewhere else. It begins with knowledge. Then knowledge becomes a skill. The skill becomes useful. The usefulness creates opportunities. Opportunities create income. Income can be saved, invested, or reinvested. And over time, those decisions can create assets. So if you don't have much money right now, don't automatically assume you have nothing. You may have time. You may have energy. You may have access to information. You may have the ability to learn. You may have a skill that hasn't been developed yet. You may have an idea that hasn't been tested. Those things aren't the same as wealth, but they can become building blocks. There's something important I want you to understand. None of these psychological traits guarantee wealth. There are people who are disciplined and still struggle. There are people who work incredibly hard and face circumstances outside their control. If you found this useful, subscribe to the channel. Here, we break down money, psychology, learning, and the ideas that can help you understand how success actually works, without making it sound more complicated than it needs to be. And remember, you don't have to start rich. You just have to start building. I'll see you in the next one.